SuperTalk Mississippi Media production.
Mississippi State making history this weekend with their inclusion in the NCAA tournament, hosting the number one seed in their region. I like soccer, but I don't know enough about it, so I had to bring in an expert. Marion Crowder covers soccer for ESPN, former SEC player at Georgia. And Marion, let's just start off with this. You know, this team, I knew last year they were good. They went to the NCAA tournament. They make a good run in there. I didn't have any idea that coming into this season, this was going to be a team that was going to be a top two team in the country, a number one overall seed. From a national perspective, which you have, how surprising is Mississippi State's success this season?
That's a good question. I actually felt like within the conference, Mississippi State was that team that was really on the rumble last year, and they just got, Brian, they just got ridden with injuries at the exact wrong time. They were peaking, and then just so many key players, one after the other. And it was tough, for them to even have enough people to really field a chance at the SEC championships last year. And so this year, you knew, all the conference coaches knew kind of in the back of their mind that this is a team that's going to be problematic because they're going to have all those players, not only with a year more experience under their belt, but obviously with some time to get healthy. And everything for Mississippi State has fallen into place. And so I think from a national conversation, people are surprised because let's be honest, I'm a Mississippi native. We are not known for our soccer prowess, okay? I've been on the national stage, been to national team camps. One of the first questions I get asked when everybody's going through the room, hey, where are you from? Tell us something about yourself. Hey, I'm Marion Crowder. I'm from Mississippi. Right? Just heads immediately turn because it's just not something that people think of. And so on the national stage, this wasn't even on people's radar. And so for James, I have the pleasure of talking to him and his coaching staff, and they are just wonderful. And so he and I had this very candid conversation as, hey, you're creating this really cool buzz in your own state. And it's not just in Starkville, right? It's in the youth clubs, it's in the private schools, it's in the high school kids coming to the games. And he said, yeah, but I'm ready for us to be recognized on the national stage. I'm ready for us to have the fair shot for everyone. So it's kind of a double answer to your question. In the conference, people knew that if they stayed healthy, they were going to be problematic. On the national stage, I think that people saw how close they played Wake Forest. And then really the icing on the cake was beating Arkansas at home. And then from there, I think people still are like, what is this Mississippi State team all about? Well, they're going to get a chance to find out, hopefully, for a while at the NCAAs.
So I've asked Coach Armstrong this question a couple of times, and he's just too humble.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh, I know.
He gives every bit of credit to his assistants and to his players. Tactically, what does Mississippi State do that makes them so tough to score on?
Really interesting question. And I'm going to answer it first by saying James Armstrong does not give himself near enough credit. I feel like I am on like a path. Every time he interviews with someone, I'm coming behind and being like, yeah, look, his staff is great. Don't get me wrong. But he has one of the most brilliant tactical minds in the game. Okay, so let's just get that out of the way. He's fabulous. What makes them so difficult is a couple of things. They play typically a 3-6-1. Mm-hmm. Now they do have a key injury in the midfield that is going to be interesting to see how they adjust. But they typically play this 3-6-1, and they play that means a 3-back with 6 players in the midfield and 1 player as the lone striker.
Right.
The way that they play their 6 midfielders is typically in a box formation. So they have, 2 attacking midfielders, 2 holding midfielders, and then they also get the width. And so with that, they are setting themselves up for success on both sides of the ball. They have players who are just intuitively able to open up spaces on opposition back lines, and that a lot of that comes from their 2 attacking midfielders in Ali Perry and Aitana Martinez Montoya. But then they also have, if teams want to clog centrally, they also have ability to go out wide to their playmakers in the 1v1 channels in the wider parts of the field. Now, what that does for them on the defensive side of the ball is it clogs space centrally. So it avoids transitional moments, right? It allows, even with a 3-back, it allows for protection for those 3 to keep their shape in the middle part of the field because they kind of have this balance on the width. So their shape is a little bit interesting. Their shape is a little bit tough to play against, but one thing about this Mississippi State group that's different from all the other groups in the conference is they have this ability to not only grind out wins, right? They can be gritty, they can be dirty, they don't mind the blue collar work ethic, but they can also break you down in a really sophisticated way, which I think is ultimately going to help them for a deeper run in the NCAA tournament.
And you say gritty and dirty and blue collar. I think you just described Macy Hodge.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
She is like, she's one of those players that like other players want to play with because definitely
don't want to play against her.
Right. You don't want to play against her, but you love her if she's on your team because she's just willing to do every little bit of the dirty work. Is she a unique player in college soccer this year?
I mean, I think it says she was the resounding. So I just got back from the SEC tournament. We did the SEC and we did the ACC, and obviously coaches in all kinds of conferences talk. And Brian Pinsky, the reigning national head coach of the year for the Florida State Seminoles, they just won the ACC championship. We were talking about this because Brian Pinsky used to coach at Tennessee. And so we have been kind of asking him the differences in the conference tournament formats, what he's seeing now as like a third party observer. And he just could not give enough credit to James Armstrong and to Macy Hodge in particular, because even a coach of his level, his caliber, feels like if they don't have Macy Hodge, they can't do a lot of what they want to do with this interesting formation that they play. What she is able to do and controlling the tempo, controlling the rhythm, and just being, I mean, let's be honest, being that player that's just going to make you plays. As complicated as we can make this game of soccer, it also comes down to people just being willing to get into the tackle and win it for your team. And that's what she can bring. What we've seen that's different from Macy this year is her ability on the ball is really starting to shine as well. She's got this vision where she can pick her head up and she can ping a 40-yard pass into a really dangerous runner, and they can score goals from that. Previously, I feel like we really only saw her defensive hard work, but we're really seeing her shine on both sides of the ball this year.
Is Maddie Anderson the best keeper in college soccer this year?
Ooh, college soccer, look, that's tough, man. That's a really tough question. You kind of put me on the spot. Maddie, I mean, let's be honest, Maddie hasn't been tested all that much. And I mean that in the most respectful way possible. When you look at the conference stats, we were going through how coaches are voting for the best goalkeeper in the SEC. And when we were going through that, it's like, okay, you kind of have two options. You're going to vote for the team, right, who has just been incredibly dominant on the defensive side of the ball. And because of that, because of the confidence that Maddie Anderson gives you as a back line, she deserves the credit for being SEC Goalkeeper of the Year. Or are you going to go with someone like a Jordan Brown from Georgia or even like a Shu Oba from Ole Miss, who are facing the most saves of anyone in the conference? And if they don't make 5 big saves a game, there's no way that their team's going to be even in the conversation, right? So that was kind of what the coaches were deciding between. And I think they made ultimately the right decision, because as much credit as you want to give the defensive group, yes, she's got incredible center backs in front of her, but they are able to play the way that they can because she provides that confidence, that level of confidence. So look, even if we get beat, we still have her as our last line of defense. There are some really, really good goalkeepers across the country, but Maddie Anderson has trained with our colleague as well, Jill Lloyden, who's on several of these SEC calls. And Jill is one of the most intelligent goalkeeper coaches that I've ever had. I've had the ability to be a part of. And they would say that the only difference between Maddie and some of the other keepers in the country is her ability to distribute. We don't often see Maddie have to play with her feet. And there are goalkeepers like Texas's Mia Justice, who are actually charged with building out of the back and starting the attack from their 18-yard box. And so I would say that it doesn't make one better than the other. It just makes them a little bit different. But she's going to be in that national conversation, no doubt.
All right, talk me through the Starkville Regional. Utah State, Washington, Southern coming to Starkville. Utah State, from what I've heard of them, they're kind of a similar team to Mississippi State in that they are a gritty team. They can grind you out a little bit. I think State obviously will be the favorite to progress out of this because they're the 1 seed. But if there was going to be an upset, is Utah State the team State needs to watch out for?
Yeah, look, man, I'll tell you from experience, the first 2 rounds are, everyone's like, oh, well, you're going to rest all your players. That's an easy win. They're not. Yeah. They're not, because what do they have to lose? Nothing. They have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And especially, we're talking about Mississippi State being on a different scale nationally than we've ever seen them before. You truly have a national target on your back. You're going to get everyone's best performance. And so that being said, these are really the matchups that mentally as a player, you've got to lock in on, because people are just coming in to try and upset the status quo. That's all they're trying to do. And I mean, we've seen Memphis play spoiler a good bit to people. And James and I actually had a really interesting conversation about this. The play-by-play was making the argument that I just did. Well, you'll have a week to rest players, and then hopefully, it's just a cakewalk for you guys because you'll be number one seed. And he looks and he goes, well, the past 2 years we've barely gotten out of the first round because it's just a battle of attrition sometimes with those groups. But again, this is a different Mississippi State team. I think their will to fight and their ability to battle for 90 minutes is different than we've seen in the past. I still think that they're going to be all right. But yeah, you're completely right. It's going to be interesting the first couple rounds.
It's interesting to hear you say that people talk about resting starters in a game like this, where you just make one mistake in the box and there's a penalty kick and all of a sudden it's 1-0. And then, 1-0 is tough. It's tough to come back from sometimes. So
because think about it too. If I'm going on the road as an underdog, and I make that one moment, right? So right now their coach is preaching, guys, we need one moment. And in that one moment, I need you to be on your P's and Q's and make the most of that one moment. Because after that one moment, guess what we're going to do? We're going to play 11 on the back line. And best of luck to you. Yeah. So, these are the moments where as a head coach, and I know that this is going to be the message from James and company, and even they've got so many seniors that have been here before. The message is going to be, hey, let's put it away in the first 20 minutes. Make no mistake about it. If you want rest, the job has to be done in the first 20, 25 minutes. We need to be up by 3 at a minimum, and then we'll talk about it. But you need to come out thinking that this is the SEC championship.
Yeah. What does this team lack? If I said State doesn't win the national title, why is that the case? What do they lack? What do they need to do in this tournament to get all the way through?
I love that question. And it all comes down to their holding mids. So we talk a lot about their formation. Why does their formation work? It's actually the balance. I think their formation works because 2 things. They have the intuition of the attacking midfielders, so Ali Perry and Aitana Martinez Montoya. They are the players that really understand how to make opposition back line make a decision. Okay, they put them in really confusing situations where do I step? Do I drop? I don't know. That's their job. But the real reason that works in front of them is because of the 2 holding midfield players. It used to be Alana Izquierdo. Alana was that key player that we mentioned, did not play at all in the SEC tournament. I have not heard if this is going to be a season-ending injury or if they were just, hey, we know we're going to rest her. If she is not in the game, if she is not in this NCAA tournament run, that is a weakness. I cannot understate the value of what she brings to this team. Not only does she do that on an individual level, but it's the duality of her and Macy that really make this team click. Macy, it can be that smasher, right? She can go in, she can win you tackles, she can set the tone. She can be a ball distributor, but ultimately that's not her first responsibility. For Alana, though, Alana's first responsibility is setting the attack forward, setting it all in motion. She is a national team star. She is going to have an incredible global career, and she is one of the most intelligent players I have ever seen play the college game. I kid you not. I know this sounds so dramatic, but I kid you not. Every single time I have called Mississippi State this year, she's the best player on the field. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So if they don't have her, I question how efficient that can be. And I think that you're going to have to see some different players step up. But right now, Alana is the player that makes the moments happen. Yeah, they have the other exclamation points, right? They have the Ali Perrys who can put the exclamation point on the moment. But who's going to make the moment happen if she's not in the game? That would be what I look back and say, if only she was healthy.
So let me ask you this, and we'll wrap up with this. If things go right for Mississippi State, if they get the things that you're talking about to happen,
Yeah.
can they be the last team standing? Can this team win a national championship?
Yes. All right. So I called, and just to put this into perspective, I called, went from the SEC tournament to the ACC tournament. Called ACC tournaments a little bit different, so they only have
two 1 seeds and two 2 seeds out of the ACC, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So once we got there, we called the only team that gave Mississippi State a loss this year, Wake Forest. Okay, Wake Forest was put out by the Florida State Seminoles.
Right.
Okay, that game had to go to penalties. Ultimately, I have yet to see a team give Florida State as many problems as Wake Forest did. Mm-hmm. And I actually think if you go back and you watch the film on the Wake Forest Mississippi State game, Mississippi State, it truly was one of their worst performances. There were moments, but that was not the Mississippi State team that you're seeing now. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I say all that to say, when we called the championship, which was Florida State and UNC, mm-hmm. it never really felt like it was a game between anybody but Florida State and themselves. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to put the pieces together that's really the standard. When Florida State is at their best, they are the standard. Okay, you can beat everybody else, but can you beat Florida State?
Right.
And I do think that Mississippi State has the physicality to go toe to toe with them. And that one would actually be more of a tactical coaching matchup, I think, between James and between Brian and his staff, as opposed to the players on the field who can maximize their strengths. But I think Mississippi State, with all the healthy pieces, really could make this one special.
It's kind of funny that two of the worst college football teams in the country are two of the best college football teams in the country.
You got to give them something to be excited about, though. You know,
yeah. Marion, really appreciate it. Really good stuff too. Thank you for answering the tactical question, because James just refused. Oh, my staff's so great, and like I can't get anything out of him. So really appreciate your time, Marion Crowder. Look forward to your call on the NCAA tournament.
Always. Thanks for having me.
A SuperTalk Mississippi Media production.